Emily Thompson was the very picture of hope in Willow Springs. At just 28 years old, her kindness lit up the classrooms where she taught children to dream big and believe in the future. Her marriage to Jack Carter was, in everyone's eyes, living, proof of a perfect love. Jack, with his commanding presence, ran the auto shop he had inherited from his father and seemed to be a man of respect and responsibility, the kind of husband any woman would dream of having. But, as in every good drama, the smiles on the surface concealed cracks that only Emily was beginning to notice. The morning Emily discovered she was pregnant felt like a ray of sunshine breaking through a storm. She felt a wave of happiness as she imagined Jack holding their baby in his arms, laughing with pride. This will change everything, she thought. Maybe Jack was just overwhelmed with work at the shop, and the baby would bring a breath of fresh life into their relationship. Emily decided she would share the news that very night, preparing a special dinner to celebrate the start of this new chapter. Emily spent the entire day pouring her heart into the dinner, choosing Jack's favorite dishes, smoked ribs with barbecue sauce and cinnamon apple pie. The table was immaculate, decorated with wildflowers she had picked herself that morning. She slipped into a simple yet elegant blue dress and looked at herself in the mirror, trying to ignore the shadows of worry in her own eyes. He's going to be happy, she repeated to herself like a mantra. Jack walked through the door as a shadow of the man Emily once knew. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, and he didn't even bother to take off his dirty shoes before stepping onto the pristine carpet. His shoulders were slumped, and his eyes, those eyes she had once loved, now seemed as cold as a winter night. Emily greeted him with a hesitant smile, but he only mumbled something unintelligible, avoiding eye contact. She felt a tightness in her chest. Something was wrong, very wrong. As they ate, Emily tried to make conversation, but Jack responded, with monosyllables. With every attempt she made to connect, he seemed to pull further away. Until finally she couldn't take it anymore. "Jack, what's going on? You barely look at me these days." The question hung in the air like a threat, but Emily wasn't prepared for the answer. He set his fork down on the table, sighing, deeply as if on the verge of exploding. "Emily, there's something I need to tell you. I can't keep going like this." She froze, feeling her blood run cold. "Like what?" she murmured, trying to stay calm. I met someone else." The words hit like a punch to the stomach. "What?" Emily's voice nearly gave out. She stared at him, waiting for him to say it was a mistake, a cruel joke. But Jack continued, relentless. "I'm with Samantha. Hayes. I love her, Emily. And I'm leaving." The silence that followed was deafening. Emily, stunned, could barely breathe. Her head spun, the food in her stomach suddenly unbearably heavy. "Jack, how could you?" Her words came out in a trembling whisper laden with pain. Jack looked away, unable to meet her gaze. "I'm sorry, Emily, but this is how it has to be." He stood up, grabbed his car keys and left, leaving Emily, alone in the crushing silence of the house they had once called home. The wildflowers on the table seemed to wilt before her eyes, just like her dreams of a future together. Emily sat there for hours, staring into the void, until at last she placed a hand on her belly. There lay her only reason to keep moving, forward. "No matter what happens," she whispered to herself, tears streaming down her face, "I'll protect you. I'll give you all the love he took from us." Did you like this first part of the story? Tell us which city you are following. We want to know how far this exciting novel is going. Life in Willow Springs had never been so turbulent. The small town where everyone knew everyone was abuzz with rumors about the scandal involving Jack Carter, now seen alongside Samantha Hayes, and the wife he had abandoned, Emily Thompson, pregnant and alone. Jack and Samantha didn't seem to care about the whispers or disapproving glances. On the contrary, they seemed to thrive on them. Samantha, always with a cynical smile on her face, made it a point to parade arm in arm with Jack through the streets, at cafes, and even at church events where the whole community gathered. To many it was a brazen affront. To Emily it was daily torment. 5 months pregnant, Emily lived through seemingly endless anguish. Jack's betrayal was hard, enough to bear, but the disdain from some people in town made it all the more unbearable. Samantha, with her talent for manipulation, had spread rumors that Emily was to blame for the marriage's collapse, insinuating that she had neglected Jack, or that the pregnancy was a desperate attempt to trap him. The gossip spread like wildfire. Now when Emily walked through town, she could feel the judging eyes on her. Whispers followed her, and sometimes cruel words were spoken just loud enough for her to hear. "It's a shame she still shows her face around here," one woman remarked at the market, pretending not to notice Emily nearby. Jack deserved better than her. Despite the pain, Emily tried to hold her head high. She knew that even surrounded by uncertainty, she had to be strong for her daughter. The days were lonely, but she found comfort in small acts of kindness. That was how Ryan Miller came back into her life. Ryan, a childhood friend of Emily's, was now the town doctor. Tall, with a calming smile and warm eyes, he had always been a reassuring presence to everyone in Willow Springs. When he heard about Emily's situation, Ryan decided to help her in any way he could. He visited her regularly, making sure she was well both physically and emotionally. "You don't have to go through this alone," he told her during one of his visits, gently holding her hands. "You're so much stronger than you realize, Emily." Those words had the power to soothe the storm of emotions within her. Over time, Ryan's presence became a cornerstone for Emily. He accompanied her to prenatal appointments, brought her fresh fruits to help with her nutrition, and even encouraged her to start a small sewing project that kept her busy and helped supplement her income. Ryan didn't just care for Emily as a doctor. He supported her as a loyal friend, someone who believed in her ability to rise again, even in the face of the most challenging circumstances. Meanwhile, Samantha continued manipulating Jack with frightening skill. She had convinced him that maintaining any contact with Emily would be dangerous for their new life together. "You need to cut all ties with her," Samantha would say with cold eyes. "You know she just wants to drag you back into that mediocre past you two had." Jack, completely under her spell, accepted Samantha's lies as gospel. He stopped replying to Emily's messages and began ignoring her calls. Worse yet, Samantha persuaded him to dodge his financial responsibilities, claiming that he shouldn't have to support someone who was taking advantage of him. Emily, however, knew she couldn't expect anything from Jack. Each day was a battle, but she refused to let bitterness consume her. She decided to focus on what she could control, building a future for her daughter. She began sewing small pieces of clothing to sell, and with Ryan's guidance, she learned to better manage her finances. Every step she took was a step away from the past and a move toward a new life. On a hot summer afternoon, Emily walked through the town square, feeling the soft kicks of her baby in her belly, as if the little one were giving her strength. As she passed by a cafe, she saw Jack and Samantha laughing together. Samantha, noticing Emily, shot her a look full of disdain and grabbed Jack's face, kissing him theatrically, making sure Emily saw. Emily paused for a moment, feeling the familiar ache threaten to resurface, but then she placed her hand on her belly and took a deep breath. Without hesitation, she kept walking. The scene seemed to hurt less now. It was as if the love she felt for her daughter was beginning to fill the void Jack had left behind. When she arrived home, Ryan was waiting on the porch with a bag of groceries and that smile that always brought her peace. "I thought you might need a healthy dinner after a long day," he said as he stepped inside with her. Emily smiled. For the first time in months, she felt like there was light at the end of the tunnel. Despite everything she had lost, there was still kindness in the world, and most importantly, there was still hope. Jack Carter was living a dream that was slowly beginning to unravel, even if he couldn't see it yet. Ever since he had left Emily to be with Samantha Hayes, he believed he was living the life he deserved. Free, in love, and with a vibrant woman who seemed capable of conquering the world. Samantha was stunning, sophisticated, and carried a confidence that fascinated him. She made him feel important, as if he were a man destined for greater things. But behind her captivating smile and sparkling eyes, Samantha hid secrets as dark as her ambitions. The first signs that something was wrong began to appear when Jack noticed discrepancies in his bank statements. Large sums of money were vanishing from his account, and Samantha always had a ready explanation. "They're just investments, Jack," she'd say with a seductive smile. "You'll thank me when we see the profits." Trusting her blindly, he didn't question it. She seemed so self-assured that it was hard to doubt her intentions. But the doubts began to grow, fed by small details he couldn't ignore. One night, while Samantha was in the shower, Jack noticed her phone vibrating on the table. It was a message from an unknown number. He didn't usually snoop through her things, but something about that night felt different, as if an inner voice was urging him to uncover the truth. When he unlocked the phone, what he found left him stunned. Detailed messages about financial transactions and clear mentions of his name being used to finalize fraudulent real estate sales. Samantha had been profiting from illegal schemes while making Jack the face of it all. In an instant, the illusion of happiness shattered. Samantha's betrayal wasn't just personal, it was professional. He knew that if this were discovered, he would be the one held responsible for those transactions. Jack confronted Samantha as soon as she stepped out of the shower, still wrapped in her luxurious robe, and showed her the messages on her phone. "What is this, Samantha? You're using my name to commit crimes?" Rather than deny or apologize, Samantha laughed. A cold, cruel laugh that made Jack's stomach turn. "Oh, Jack. Did you really think I was with you for love?" she said, crossing her arms and looking at him as if he were naive. "You're a simple man, Jack. A man who inherited some money and a garage but never had the ambition to use them wisely. I did this for us. Well, for me, really." Jack felt as though the ground was crumbling beneath him. "I gave you everything, Samantha. I destroyed my life for you," he shouted, his voice full of frustration and despair. "Don't blame me for your choices," she replied with a disdainful smirk. "You knew what you were doing when you chose me. I just did what was best for me, and now I'm leaving. Don't think I'm going to stick around to face the consequences." Samantha grabbed a suitcase already packed in the closet, as if she'd been anticipating this moment, and walked out the door without looking back. Samantha's departure left Jack in ruins. Rumors about his illegal transactions spread quickly, and within weeks he lost everything. The garage was shut down due to lack of funds, his bank account was drained, and the friends he thought he had disappeared as soon as the scandal came to light. He became a man scorned in Willow Springs, condemned to live with the weight of his choices. Meanwhile, Emily was facing her own moments of tension. Months of stress, judgment, and heartbreak were taking their toll. Now 7 months pregnant, she began experiencing severe pain and contractions while working at home. She knew something was wrong. Grabbing her phone, she called Ryan, who answered immediately and rushed to get her. At the hospital, the situation was critical. Emily was in premature labor and the complications were severe. Ryan, with his medical expertise, knew this would be a pivotal moment. He held Emily's hand as she cried in pain and fear. "You're going to be okay," he said firmly, even though his heart was heavy with worry. He knew there were risks, for both Emily and the baby, but he also knew he couldn't let her see his concern. The medical team worked tirelessly as Ryan coordinated the procedures. After hours of anxiety, Emily gave birth to a premature but incredibly resilient baby girl. Small and fragile, the baby was placed in an incubator while Emily remained under observation. Ryan stayed by her side the entire time, offering comfort and ensuring that both mother and daughter were safe. Jack, on the other hand, sat alone in a rundown bar in the neighboring town, drinking to forget the disaster his life had become. The weight of his choices had finally caught up to him. He thought about Emily, the baby he had rejected, and the promises he had broken. For the first time in months, he felt genuine regret that consumed him. He knew there was no undoing the past, but the guilt he carried would be a burden he'd have to bear for the rest of his life. So, are you enjoying my narration so far? Let's take advantage and do a secret joke. Write in the comments the word cat, and thus who is not following the story will understand nothing. I'll come by and leave a little heart for you. Can you join in? The birth of Lila Grace was like a rebirth for Emily Thompson. In the days following her daughter's arrival, Emily discovered a strength she never knew she possessed. Despite the challenges, she felt her life now had a clear purpose: to raise her daughter with all the love that she herself had lost during months of betrayal and abandonment. Lila, with her bright eyes and tiny, delicate hands, was a constant reminder that even the deepest pain could give rise to something extraordinary. Emily quickly adjusted to her new routine as a single mother. The days were long, but she filled them with small moments of joy, like Lila's smile when she heard her voice or the baby's soft touch on her face. She continued to rely on Ryan's support, who had become a constant and indispensable presence in her life. He not only helped with Lila's medical needs, but also made sure Emily took a few moments for herself to rest. "You don't have to be a superhero all the time," he'd say, cradling Lila in his arms so Emily could enjoy a quiet cup of tea. Meanwhile, Jack Carter was living a very different reality. The financial and social ruin Samantha had left behind had turned him into a broken man. He wandered the streets of Willow Springs like a shadow, avoiding people's gazes and the memories of the mistakes he had made. But it was the regret of abandoning Emily and their child that consumed him the most. He tried to imagine the face of the baby he had never met, but the guilt prevented him from even picturing it. Time passed, and one day, as Emily walked through the town park with Lila in her arms, Jack saw her. It felt like a jolt to his system. He recognized her silhouette from afar, but it was the sight of the baby in her arms that hit him like a punch to the chest. The little girl was so small, so delicate, and there was something about her that stirred a strange, inexplicable warmth in him. He knew he needed to approach her, but he had no idea how he would be received. A few days later, Jack finally worked up the courage to knock on Emily's door. The hollow sound of his knuckles on the wood seemed to echo through his soul. When she opened the door, holding Lila in her arms, the look she gave him was pure ice. "What do you want, Jack?" she asked, her voice steady, though she couldn't hide her discomfort. Jack swallowed hard. "Emily, I just wanted to see you, to see both of you. I want to apologize. I want to try to make things right." Emily stared at him for a long moment, trying to process what she was hearing. She no longer felt the sharp pain she once had. Time had healed some of her wounds. But there was something else. She no longer felt fear or dependence. Jack had no power over her anymore. "Make things right?" she repeated with a bitter laugh. "Jack, you destroyed everything, and now you think you can walk through that door and erase what you did?" Jack lowered his eyes, feeling the weight of her words. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, Emily. But I want to be a good father. I want to be part of Lila's life. Please, give me a chance." Emily took a deep breath. The image of Jack pleading was something she never would have imagined seeing months ago. But now she couldn't let emotions or nostalgia dictate her decisions. She placed Lila in her crib and returned to face Jack head-on, her eyes full of a strength he had never seen before. "Jack, you broke me," she began, her voice low but firm. "You left me alone when I needed you most. You made me feel like I was worth nothing. But you know what? I rebuilt myself. And now, my daughter deserves more than scraps of regret. She deserves a real father, someone who is present, dependable. And you, Jack? You haven't proven to be any of those things." Emily's words were like knives sinking into Jack's heart. He tried to respond, but he realized there was nothing he could say that would change how she felt. "I just want to do the right thing now," he whispered, desperate. Emily crossed her arms, her stance resolute. "If you want to be a father, Jack, you're going to have to prove it with actions, not words. You'll have to show me, Lila, and yourself that you can be someone different. Because I'm not making room for more regret in her life. Or mine." Jack slowly nodded, feeling the weight of the challenge Emily had placed before him. But at the same time, he recognized that she was right. He had spent months running from responsibility and wallowing in self-pity, but if he truly wanted to change, he'd have to start from scratch, rebuilding not only Emily's trust, but also the self-respect he had lost. As Jack walked away from Emily's house, his mind heavy with reflection, she closed the door and returned to the living room where Lila was peacefully sleeping. She gazed at her daughter for a moment, feeling a mix of emotions, relief, pride, and above all the certainty that she had found her strength. Jack was a part of her past she couldn't erase, but that didn't mean he would define her future. That future belonged to her and Lila, and she knew she was in control of it now. The peace Emily had worked so hard to achieve finally seemed to settle into her life. Lila Grace was healthy and growing with joy, and Ryan remained a constant pillar of support both for Emily and her baby. He showed up almost daily, bringing fresh fruit, helping with medical appointments, or simply spending time with Lila, who seemed to light up every time he was around. It was a pure bond, built on trust and respect, something Emily had learned to deeply value. However, this calm was about to be shaken by a storm no one saw coming. Samantha Hayes, who had disappeared from Willow Springs after wrecking Jack's life, was back. She returned to town unannounced, driving her luxurious imported car, wearing dark sunglasses that barely concealed her bitter gaze. Jack's downfall and Emily's modest yet meaningful success were like salt in a wound to her. She couldn't stand the thought that Emily, the woman she had humiliated, had not only survived but thrived. Samantha began her campaign against Emily subtly, but with venom. Using what remained of her social connections, she spread rumors throughout the town. "Did you know that Lila isn't Jack's daughter? I heard Ryan is the real father," she would murmur in a beauty salon or while standing in line at the market. The lie quickly gained traction, spreading like wildfire as things often did in Willow Springs. People started looking at Emily with renewed curiosity, whispering as she walked by. Some even dared to ask her directly, "Emily, is it true? Is Ryan Lila's father?" Emily, who had already endured the town's judgment once before, felt momentarily shaken, not because she doubted herself, but because of Samantha's cruelty in dragging yet another unnecessary scandal into her life. What kind of person does something like this, she thought, staring at Lila sleeping peacefully in her crib. When Ryan heard about the rumor, he was furious. "She's crossed the line. I won't let this go on," he said, gripping Emily's hands firmly. But Samantha didn't stop there. She showed up at a community event where she knew Emily would be. Dressed impeccably and carrying an air of superiority, Samantha wasted no time provoking her. "Oh, Emily, how's little Lila? She has such familiar eyes," Samantha said with a cynical smile, while curious glances turned toward the two women. Emily, her heart pounding, stayed calm. "My daughter is doing very well, thank you. And you, Samantha? How's your conscience?" Emily's sharp response caused a slight murmur among the crowd, but Samantha, like an experienced snake, knew she needed something bigger to poison Emily's reputation. Within days, Samantha managed to manipulate a small group of gossipy townsfolk into publicly questioning Lila's paternity. The situation spiraled out of control when a local tabloid, known for exploiting scandals, published an anonymous note suggesting that Ryan and Emily had been romantically involved long before her marriage to Jack ended. That was the breaking point for Emily. She knew she couldn't let Samantha get away with this. "I've spent months staying quiet, letting people say whatever they wanted about me. But no more," she told Ryan as she cradled Lila in her arms. With Ryan's unwavering support, Emily decided it was time to expose Samantha once and for all. The following week, a public event was held in the town square to raise funds for the local school. It was the perfect opportunity. As always, Samantha showed up, attempting to draw attention with her fake smiles and polished demeanor. Emily, who had maintained her composure until then, requested to speak on the stage set up for speeches. As she stepped up to the microphone, her voice was steady, and her eyes shone with determination. "I'd like to thank everyone who came today to support our school," she began, drawing curious looks and even a few surprised expressions. especially from Samantha. But before we continue, I feel the need to address something. In recent days, malicious rumors have been circulating about me, my daughter, and my friend, Ryan. Emily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. These rumors were created by someone who has already brought a great deal of pain to my family and who, unfortunately, continues to spread lies. I'm here to tell you all that Lila Grace is Jack Carter's daughter, and I have proof. The crowd fell silent. Emily held up an envelope in her hand. Here are the results of a paternity test, which I had done to ensure that my daughter will never have to doubt who she is. She raised the envelope, not opening it, but her stance made it clear she was prepared for anything. Samantha, watching from the audience, looked uncomfortable for the first time. Furthermore, Emily continued, her voice now filled with emotion, the person who has worked so hard to tarnish my reputation is the same person who ruined Jack Carter's life and tried to ruin mine. But I won't let that happen. Willow Springs doesn't need more poison. What we need is unity. Truth. Emily's words were met with applause, starting softly but quickly, building in intensity. People who had doubted her now seemed to see the truth clearly. Samantha tried to slip away discreetly, but she was met with critical glances and hushed whispers of disapproval. Her exit from the town was far less glamorous than her return. This time she left humiliated, without allies, credibility, or hope of redemption. Jack, who had watched the scene from a distance, also realized that his presence in Willow Springs no longer made sense. Ashamed and aware that Emily no longer needed him, he decided to leave town to try to rebuild his life elsewhere. He left quietly, taking only the memory of his mistakes and the hope that one day he could become a better person. Emily, on the other hand, felt a weight lifted off her shoulders. With Samantha finally out of her life, and with Ryan's support, as well as that of the community, she realized she was ready to move forward. Lila, with her innocent smile, was all she needed to remind herself that the fight had been worth it. The months following Samantha and Jack's departure brought a newfound tranquility to Emily Thompson's life. For the first time in what felt like forever, she could breathe without the weight of gossip, judgment, or betrayal. Her home, now filled with laughter and the babbling of Lila Grace, had transformed into a haven of love and hope. The pain of the past still lingered in her heart, but like a well-healed scar, it no longer hurt. Ryan Miller remained by Emily's side, offering not only practical support, but also a shoulder she could lean on. He showed up almost every day, sometimes with a fresh cup of coffee, other times with toys for Lila. There was a quiet comfort in his presence, something that didn't need grand gestures or words to be understood. Lila, in particular, adored Ryan. Every time he arrived, her eyes would light up, and her tiny hands would reach out for him, as if she instinctively knew he was someone important in her life. One afternoon, as Ryan helped Emily assemble a new piece of furniture for Lila's room, the two laughed together over a comical mistake in the instructions. Their laughter echoed through the room, filling the space with something Emily had forgotten she could feel: lightness. When Ryan paused for a moment to look at her, he noticed something different in her eyes. It wasn't sadness or exhaustion, but gratitude. "You know, Ryan," she began, looking at him sincerely, "I don't know how I would have gotten through all of this without you." Ryan, ever modest, shrugged with a smile. "You would have figured it out, Emily. You're the strongest person I know." But even as he said the words, he felt they didn't quite capture how much he admired the woman Emily had become, not just for her resilience, but for the way she had transformed her pain into purpose. Inspired by her own journey, Emily decided she wanted to help other women facing similar challenges. With Ryan's encouragement, she began sharing her story and organizing weekly meetups for single mothers in the town. The group started small, with just a handful of women who, like Emily, had experienced loss or family struggles. But over time it grew. Women from nearby towns began to join, seeking support and inspiration. At each meeting, Emily shared her experiences but also listened to the stories of the other women. It was a safe space where tears, laughter, and advice flowed freely. Emily realized that her pain had not been in vain. She had found a greater purpose, something that gave meaning to everything she had endured. "We're not alone," she often said during the meetings, holding Lila in her arms. "There's always strength to move forward even when it feels like there isn't." Meanwhile, her relationship with Ryan continued to blossom, but without haste. Ryan respected Emily's space, knowing that true love couldn't be rushed. He didn't make grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but he was present in the small, meaningful moments. Like the day Lila took her first steps and he was there, cheering alongside Emily and holding her hands as she cried tears of joy. Or the nights he called just to check if she needed anything, even though he knew she was doing fine. Emily began to realize that what she felt for Ryan was something deeper than friendship. It wasn't a whirlwind romance like the ones she had seen in movies, but rather something that grew slowly, like a plant sinking its roots deeply and securely. She knew that the love blossoming between them was built on respect, trust, and a profound mutual admiration. One sunny afternoon, while the three of them strolled through the park, Emily watched Ryan hold Lila in his arms, pointing to a bird, high up in a tree, and patiently explaining the names of each species. The scene was so simple yet so powerful that a wave of emotion swept over her. For the first time in years, she thought, "I'm happy." As the sun began to set over Willow Springs, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Emily stopped at the top of a hill to take in the view. Lila rested against her chest, drowsy after a day full of play and laughter. Ryan stood beside her, hands in his pockets, gazing at the horizon with a quiet smile. Emily turned to him, and for a moment, they shared a look that said everything. There was no need for words. They were exactly where they needed to be. Emily held Lila a little closer, feeling the warmth of her daughter's small body against her. "We made it," she thought, as a gentle breeze tousled her hair. She knew that life would still have its challenges, but she also knew that she now had everything she needed. Her daughter, a man who loved her sincerely, and the strength she had found within herself. Emily's story wasn't about perfect endings, but about new beginnings. And in that moment, as the sun dipped below the horizon, she felt that the future was as bright as the colors in the sky above. And so ends the heartfelt story of Emily, Lila Grace, and their journey of resilience. After everything she faced, betrayal, gossip, and the challenges of being a single mother, Emily found peace, true love, and the strength to turn her pain into inspiration. But what about you? What did you think of her journey? If you were in Emily's shoes, what would you have done? Would you have given Jack a second chance? Or would you have faced everything with your head held high, just like she did? Or maybe you've been through something similar yourself. How did you overcome it? Share your thoughts or your story in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell for more dramatic and inspiring stories like this one.